Hey, this is Daniel, and on this episode of the Filmcraziest Show, my guests were David Lipper and Keli Price, two stars of the new comedy/mockumentary, Reboot Camp. Reboot Camp starts as something designed to show how easy it is to start a fake self-help group and con people into believing anything, but instead turns into a cult as it develops a life of its own. David Lipper plays a dual role as Seymour, the mastermind behind Reboot Camp, and his second role as Gordon St. Pierre, the larger-than-life self-help guru who is the face of Reboot Camp. Keli Price plays his brother Danny, the filmmaker who is documenting everything. The film was released on May 4th and is available on digital platforms wherever you get your films, and there will be a link down below for viewing options. Here is David Lipper to introduce the podcast.
Hi, my name is David Lipper, and I play two characters, Seymour Bar, and Gordon St. Pierre, in Reboot Camp, and you're watching the Filmcraziest Show.
Hey guys, I am Keli Price. I play one character in Reboot Camp, Danny, and it comes out on May 4th, and you're watching the Filmcraziest Show.
Awesome. And I am Daniel, the host of the Filmcraziest Show, and I do not play any characters in Reboot Camp.
You could have.
Yeah, definitely.
No, David, I was just chatting with Evo, and he had mentioned that you're Canadian and American.
Yes, I hold two passports, which is like gold today. Yeah.
So is that how you're seamlessly able to go into the Gordon St. Pierre?
Exactly. I grew up in Montreal, Canada. My parents are still there. And I left when I was about 18 to go to Emerson College in Boston. But I certainly had many years of French Canadian people in my life and know the accent quite well. So it's been a while since I've been in America for quite a long time now too. But once Evo said to me, "Hey, what are you gonna do for Gordon?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, it's like a different character you play. So you think maybe put on a different guy?" And I said, "Oh, geez, okay. What can I do?" And I'm like, his name's Gordon St. Pierre. Let's make that French Canadian, and I'll give him a French background.
No, what was it like playing two characters?
Created a little bipolarness in me, but I mean, honestly, it's weird. It was so seamless. There's even a spot when Keli, who plays Danny, my brother, comes back to the house, and I'm talking to the group with the accent, and then I talk to him normally, and then back to the group with the accent again, and it just transitioned. And I mean, it's not perfect. It's not supposed to be a perfect accent because he is a guy putting on an accent. So the good part about that is I didn't go to the perfectionist tendencies that I would have in a drama with things like accents to make sure I really nail it truthfully, and I had license to overdo it in places and not be consistent at times. So I didn't put that kind of pressure on myself, but it seemed to flow in and out pretty naturally.
Okay, yeah, like at that party scene, when you went from like you were just saying, Seymour to Gordon, I was like, is he going to get caught? Was there ever a fear with your character that he might get?
Oh, sure. There's always fears and anxieties that this is, going to go terribly wrong and it's not going to work. And we take our own anxieties as human beings and we put it into our work as actors. So we had plenty of that. Being producers also on the film, there are a lot of fires you put out on a daily basis as a producer. So you can just take that and put it into the performance.
Cool. Now, do you guys want to talk a bit about your producer roles on the film and what that entailed?
Well, basically, I'll sell my part, and Keli can jump in after.
Sure.
What happened was Evo called me up and he said, "I wrote this script and I thought of you for the lead, and then one thing led to another, and then he eventually came around to saying, do you want to produce this?" And I said, "I would love to, because I want this movie to be as good as it can be, knowing that we're probably dealing with a limited budget range, and it's a budget range I seem to have found a niche at doing well with. And that was it. And then it was just a matter of taking that producer's hat to put together a team that included Jim Johnston. I called him up and said, Jim, I need you. He's a guy I'd worked with before. He ran The Real World for almost 20 seasons. And I thought we needed a reality guy to bring in, because we're film guys. So it's really a bit of a foreign world to us. And this whole world of, I mean, Evo's done documentaries, but certainly for me, I wanted to know there was another producer on board who understood the interview process, catching things on the fly, and could help in that regard, and also bring in some reality stars, because that was one of the great things about Reboot Camp is we wanted real eccentric people playing themselves, not putting on a show to become funny. We wanted to let the humor find itself in these totally spontaneous moments from interviews that we did not have planned. We didn't even know who was going to end up on the set some days. I didn't even know Jarul and Keckner were going to be there until they were there. You didn't know who was going to show up, who wasn't, because it's like, hey, come to our film. We don't have a whole lot of money, but it's a lot of fun and with a lot of great people involved. And so it's a little nerve-wracking to have a call back to that moment. So that's what it was. And then of course, Kelly and I have worked together. We worked together in China. It's a guy that I really connected with and have respect for as an actor, somebody I wanted involved. And Kelly's also a guy like me who wears different hats and put together his own documentary, had experience in putting some elements together. He wanted to pull some cast for us, and we made him a co-producer on this. And I'm glad we did, because he was also very instrumental in who we ended up with as our distributor, which is Freestyle Digital Media, who is releasing us wide on May 4th. And I'll hand it over to Kelly to jump in on his end.
Dave, hey, thanks so much. That was really kind. Yeah, so to piggyback on that, I think Dave came to see my film On Thin Ice, came to the screening and told me about Reboot Camp for the first time. And it sounded like a great idea. I said, email me when you have a script. He sent me a script maybe 2 weeks later. My fiance's mom was here at the time. So I remember being up all night on the couch in the living room, just reading the script. And again, like, this was like, I think I read it up until like 3 or 4 a.m. So I was literally up all night reading this thing. And I texted him first thing in the morning. I was like, this is a really good script. It was super tight. Everything was together. The writing was really good. And yeah, and the rest is history pretty much. We started production like a month later. And yeah, we reached out to like Dave said, a bunch of fun reality stars to come in. We had Nicole Aniston, the porn star. We had, Chaz Bono, David Keckner, Ja Rule, and it was just a really fun cast.
Yeah, that must have made the set so fun in itself, right?
Well, and as Kelly said, it starts with a good script. We wouldn't be having this conversation if Evo didn't deliver a great script to begin with. The fact that we ended up with even more great stuff from what we found in the improv department, that was just really gravy on what we started with, which was a good nucleus. And to touch on some of the cast that Kelly was talking about, we also had Ed Begley Jr. And you take guys like Ed Begley Jr., who's been in every mockumentary, most of those Christopher Guest ones, including the biggest ones like Best in Show. And then you take a guy like David Keckner, who was schooled in the mockumentary TV world of The Office, and you merge those two kings of the genre, and then you build around that. And so as actors, when we got to see them working, the greatest lesson I learned is you don't push anything. You don't try and be funny. You don't look to be funny. You play it completely real, completely genuine, completely honest. And the laughs will come from the situations. And so nobody does that better than Ed Begley. His deadpan matter-of-factness, sincerity is what makes him so funny. And we just won the Garden State Film Festival. And it was the first time I got to see the film with an audience. It was one of these hybrids that they're finally starting to open up things in America. And we actually had a screening with people. It's amazing. And the laughter that, first of all, came throughout the whole film, but especially on Ed Begley's moments where he's not doing anything. That is the real testament to how to pull off this genre. And again, kudos to Ivo. He was a stickler and religious about it to make sure if he caught people pushing it too far, he'd pull them back, So he's like, no shtick, take the shtick out. And, certain moments, it's just, you can't stop it because it's so absurd. When we're doing animal yoga and going blah, 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 it's what it is. But I think that's why we did so well with this film, and we've won 3 back-to-back-to-back film festivals in a row.
Yeah. And I think the film was set up so well. Ivo did a brilliant job because he had us do that over the top camp stuff first. And then we did the interview stuff that was really, serious. So it worked really well doing it that way because it felt like you actually experienced the camp.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kelly, because he did that intentionally to make sure that Kelly and I did all our interviews at the very last day of the shoot, so that everything had actually happened and we knew, reflecting back, what we could comment on and how. It wasn't that, again, some scripted, but a lot of unscripted or a lot of re-scripted as we went.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And also congrats on the 3 back-to-back-to-backs. That's what they call a winning streak. Also, yeah, it's interesting that you say just how you have to kind of not force the laughs. And it's interesting to me because I was just listening to a podcast last night, how it's kind of similar to stand-up comedy, or how you have to let the laughs come to you and not feel pressure to exactly what you're saying, be over the top in a way.
Yeah, there was no when I did a one-on-one session, or in the case of Drew and Keckner, 1-on-2, that was legitimately me trying to hear what the problem is, pose some questions, get to the root of the problem, and then resolve it. Now, the way we resolved it and the problems themselves were what were absurd and where the comedy comes in, but we played it bang on, and the reactions were genuine. I didn't know what the responses were going to be. And probably there were moments where I'm like, this guy's, a little cuckoo, but trying to keep a straight face and not go there because I'm trying to work with them and not ostracize them or, make them feel safe so that they could open up more to me. So all that stuff had to be played genuinely.
And what was that a challenge, keeping a straight face when these people are so funny, but you have to be still Gordon and not be judging them?
It took a lot of focus. Again, to the prime directive is no matter what, don't break. Focus on helping these people and stay focused and don't break. And, that goes for Kelly, for everybody in this group, because there was a lot of funny stuff that came out of nowhere. And we all had to stay completely in at all times. And I tell you, if I had a big blooper reel for you, I'd show it to you. We didn't really have it. And you'll see a blooper in the end credits. That was pretty much the extent of things that kind of went off, because that was what I said, Eva, let's do a big blooper reel at the end. He's like, I don't have them. I got outtakes, a lot of great stuff that got cut, but people didn't cut themselves. People didn't stop. And you know what I mean? People didn't flub lines, and it just didn't happen, which is crazy for a film.
Okay. I guess that leans into the authenticity of it though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, Evo did a lot of cross shooting, which is so important in a film like this, because you've got the interviewer here, and then you've got the guy or the 2 guys I'm interviewing over here, right? And so we're not reshooting. We're not doing shoot all this coverage, then reshoot the scene again this way. We're doing cross coverage, so we're catching everything in the moment as it's happening, which I'm sure you probably went over in his interview. So because of that, it was all one take, there was no redoing it.
Okay, that's interesting. Cool. Now, what was it like for you to playing into the brotherly bond?
That was easy. I mean, we were really good friends. We kept saying before the process, like, we don't need to go get beers. We don't need to start from scratch. We had an experience in China together doing this movie, and we already had the bond. So going into those scenes where we're creating this self-help group, and there's that scene where we come up with the name Reboot Camp. That was just like a lot of fun because it was just us like hanging out, going over this stuff, and it just came super natural.
One of the things you're going to see in the several films I have coming out in the next year is I like to work with the same people, and where we already have relationships, we already have history, we already have reliability that I know these are people I can count on. So that's why you're going to see Keli in the upcoming romantic comedy I've got called Will You Be My Quarantine, where I'm reunited with one of my Full House people, Jodie Sweetin. You're going to see us together in Wolf Mountain, a great script that Keli wrote. That's with Danny Trejo and Tobin Bell. So this is the beauty, exactly what Keli was saying, is we don't have to say, hey, nice to meet you, let's get a beer and get to know each other. We know each other. So for us to play brothers, funny enough, we're going to play brothers again in Wolf Mountain.
That's right.
For us, yeah, it's just so much easier as actors to have that foundation. It's probably why people like Judd Apatow keep using the same people over and over again, and I think there's a lot of wisdom to that in when you see these characters connect.
Okay, yeah, like in my experience, there's so much, like it's so important having like that little community of filmmakers that you can always like collaborate with. And those titles sound great. I chuckled at the quarantine one. I already forget it. I'm sorry.
Will You Be My Quarantine?
Yes. I like it. I like it.
I have to see my scene in that movie. Dave keeps telling me about it. Oh man.
You got a few scenes, first of all, and yeah, you're great. Can't wait for you to see this.
Every scene in that movie is it's so funny. It's really funny.
You'll see Eddie McClintock also in that, who's also, plays the producer in this film. Cooper, who's hysterical. Yeah, good, really, and just good people. Who wants to work with a bunch of egomaniacal buttheads when you have good, hardworking people that show up and don't complain and just care about the work? Those are the people that are in these films. Those are the people that I want to keep working with. And it makes all the difference, because on these smaller budget films where you don't have time and luxury for an actor to go, well, I don't agree with this, and I think and then like, oh God, we got to stop everything. Keli, I'm sure, has been through these moments as I have, and they're excruciating. We just don't have the time or luxury for those people that we don't know how they're going to be. So when we've got good people, it's in our interest to keep using them.
Okay. Were there any new people that you hadn't worked with before who came onto Reboot Camp?
Reboot Camp? Yeah.
For me, yeah. I mean, Jarul was a first timer, but he was fantastic. I got to tell you, Ed and I've known Ed and his wife for a while, so that was not new. Eric Roberts, I've known for a while. Chaz was new, but is now a good friend, I consider. And so I'm sure you'll see him back. Obviously, Eddie's an old friend of mine. Keli's an old friend of mine. Maya's an old friend of mine who plays Claire. Jessica Belkin had already played my daughter. Melanie, who plays her mom, is an old friend of mine. I mean, the list goes on and on. David Koechner was a friend, but Jarul was a friend of the other producers. There was no casting director on this film. I don't know if you noticed that. So if you really go down the list, every single person in that cast was somebody we knew, other than Keli had reached out to a couple of the reality stars, and I'll let Keli jump in on that about Nicole and Corinne.
So yeah, I mean, we pretty much knew everybody. We didn't know Nicole Aniston personally, but I woke up one morning, I was like, boom, a light bulb went off. I was like, Nicole Aniston would be so perfect for this movie. I called Dave and he agreed. And then we got her in the movie, but we didn't know her, prior. But Corinne Olympios, we had met before she came to some screenings of mine. And so most of the cast, we did know, but people like Chaz, coming in that we didn't know were really, really great, and we're looking forward to working with them again.
And then people like Chaz, just so you know, like I've been friends and known his manager forever. So like if I didn't know the actor, I may have known the agent or the manager. In fact, the guy used to represent me back in the 90s. I did not date myself. I did. Oh, come on. Full House was on in the 90s. How could I date myself? Yeah. So that's how we did it, you know? And that's how you get people to care about the project and only be there if they want to be there.
Okay, cool. Now with Nicole Aniston, did you guys use the slide in between takes?
In between takes?
Or just
I don't know if anybody used it in between takes, but I'll tell you that scene, talking about not being able to keep a straight face, like I was videoing on my little camera in the actual scene, you know, because Danny's documenting the whole thing.
Yeah.
Now there is a big reveal there that we don't want to give away about what that slide is, but yes, continue.
Right. Anywho, that was a very funny scene, and yes, there is something in that scene that we can't really give away, but Nicole is in that scene, and pretty much everybody in the cast is in that scene, and it was really funny, and that's pretty much all we can say right now.
Okay.
We've been sworn to secrecy by Evo on
Okay.
Yeah.
very important production design that will come out.
I think I spoiled it in the Evo interview, but that's fine.
Oh no, I'm sure he covered it up because he's been like, nobody talks about that.
Now I learned that you I think you took it home, David?
Yes.
The slide?
The slide, the water slide is at my pool.
Okay.
And it's, you know, I'm so happy that I have that constant reminder of how hard it was to put that piece of production design together, because that was a whole thing. That took, I can't even tell you what we went through with trying to get product placement, to trying to figure out how to build it, I mean, it just went on and on and on and on. So that is the reminder of we had an impossible hurdle and we persevered and got it done.
Okay, awesome. Now, I think I only have time for one or two more. So Kelly, I just wanted to ask, like, with your character Danny, he's the filmmaker, getting the documentary coverage. Were you actually operating the camera, and what was it like getting into that filmmaker perspective as a character?
Well, it was cool because I had just made a film, I think, right before we shot the movie, so it was pretty easy to get into that zone. I actually made a documentary right before we started principal photography, so it was pretty easy. But was I actually operating the camera? The camera was on at times, and I had to, you know, press certain buttons, but I wasn't actually, you know, full throttle filming. It was kind of just, at times it was on, at times it was off. It was that sort of thing, but I knew how to operate a camera, so it all kind of came naturally like that.
Yeah, we had a brilliant cinematographer in Derek Cohen who was operating a Red, which is a big zoom lens too, because that's how you get those zoom in, zoom outs that are throughout the film. So It would have been impossible for Kelly to have one of those actual rigs to easily move around with. Those are heavy, big rigs that they had, you know, easy rigs and stuff that they were strapped in with. But Kelly did a perfect job of having the movement to which the camera was doing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I definitely had looked up your documentary on thin ice, so that must have been interesting, actually literally getting behind the camera, right?
Yeah, you mean for that film?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. Yeah, it was my first time behind the camera in that film, and you know, and my brother was a big part of it, and we had times where we'd interview like Evander Holyfield, and it was the two of us behind the camera. So it was actually a very similar experience to Reboot Camp, because right before I'm experiencing making a movie with my brother, interviewing, you know, some famous athletes, famous people. And here we are literally doing the same thing, you know, with a really close friend of mine that's playing my brother. And yeah, so it was just serendipity, and it was a weird kind of thing that just came together, and that's how these things do come together, I think. And it was fairly similar when we made Wolf Mountain. It kind of just happened, and that was also a lot of fun, and we had a great cast, and again, some new people that we hadn't really worked with before, but we knew of, and we heard great things, and then other people that we had worked with, but yeah, I think it was just a great experience on Reboot Camp because of having On Thin Ice right before that. It kind of really helped, and On Thin Ice is out now as well. So yeah.
Same distributor, Freestyle Digital Media.
Yes, Freestyle distributed On Thin Ice.
Both of us across all platforms. Reboot coming out May 4th. That was a plug.
Yes, I love the plug. Yeah, and I love that mockumentary meets documentary, and just how meta that was. That's nice how it comes together, right?
Oh yeah.
There's a great EPK that Evo made that should be out soon. I'm sure we'll be posting, where everyone was trying to explain it, and they're like, it's a documentary mockumentary, but it's a mockumentary. It's a documentary about it. And I remember Kelly just getting on, like, wait, it's not a fake documentary, it's a documentary. And it's a little confusing. But at the end of the day, it's just good entertainment. And I think we all need to laugh now. And I hope people watch it and get a good laugh.
David Lipper, Keli Price, thank you for chatting with me on the Filmcraziest Show about Reboot Camp, which comes out on May 4th.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, man.
Awesome.